So welcome to another wargame review from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander.
And I'm Grant.
And today we're taking a look at a new game, I guess a new edition
of a classic game.
So this is called Fortress Europa, and the reprint, it's part of the Designer Signature Edition from Compass Games. So this Fortress Europa came out in like
78.
Yeah. Long time ago.
And was a follow-up to the original Russian campaign,
yes.
which is in 73, I think it was, the year I was born.
Wow, yeah. 78 was 10 years before I was born.
Yeah, right.
Even. So it's designed by John Edwards.
And a couple of other people, but
yes.
I think John was the...
And he did the original Russian campaign, I believe.
Yeah.
But Compass have this Designer Signature Edition where they're going back in time, taking these old classic games, refreshing the rules so they're in a much more up-to-date, modern, and frankly much more digestible format.
Yeah.
Making really nice maps, really nice.
The map
counters,
is really nice, yeah.
and giving us kind of up-to-date play aids, just kind of bringing some of those old games back into a modern kind of a format.
Yeah.
Really nice production. So that's what this is. So this was our first time playing this system, so to speak, because I think the Russian campaign, and there was a North Africa campaign.
Yeah, that was his first one. I think it was in 71.
I don't know if that's the same system, but
yeah, I'm not sure.
People really loved that Russian campaign.
It was the African campaign, is what it was called.
Okay.
So,
but I since we've had this, people are like, "Oh, you'd love the Russian one," which is the one that came before this.
And I'm going to be honest, this system was really enjoyable.
Yes.
There were a lot of elements that I really found not only really cool, but really playable.
Yeah.
I just thought there were a lot of things that were abstracted that really made this very easy to play. Now, it wasn't easy strategically or tactically to figure out, what am I supposed to do here? We need another play, but there were a lot of cool things that were easy to figure out.
Yeah, so there was a lot of things that were familiar.
Yep.
Things like movement or the rail, strategic movement, CRTs and what happens with those retreats.
Brutal CRT, by the way.
Yes, but those things were familiar, but there was a lot of really cool nuance and chrome to this.
Yeah.
The one thing I really enjoyed was kind of the air combat and the kind of air war.
What is it called? Air mission?
Air mission chart is what that is.
That was really cool.
Yeah, so many of these big games really suffer from air war rules because there's so much focus on the ground war, and half the time the air war is additional rules you can tack on if you want to, and are pretty clunky, or they have that whole other, it's like two games on one map, where there's this whole extra thing. The way they do it in this, the ground combat is, I feel, very clean.
Yeah, very simple.
Nothing fancy there, nothing out of the ordinary at least, but it works really well. But the air war is this kind of miniature sideshow that you play, but it's just like the allied player assigns all of the things they want to do. And the chart tells you, hey, this is what this does, this is what this does. It's very clear. Yeah. And then the Germans have like a limited number of AI counters to just kind of like, I'm going to nullify that, and that. But I have to let these go through.
Yeah, you play spoiler.
Yeah.
You're trying to pick, as the German player, what you don't want to suffer.
Yes.
And really, as the Ally player, it's kind of like a buffet. There's about 8 different choices, from taking out bridges so they can't cross rivers, or strafing when they're moving, more than 3 spaces?
3 hexes, yeah.
Taking out rail movement because you're guarding those with air power. Or the more traditional carpet bombing, which gives you, was it a +2 on the roll?
Yep.
Which was very powerful.
Yes.
I used that quite a few times because of the brutal nature of the CRT and the fact that it was tough to get the odds really in your favor. I think we got mostly 2-1, mostly 1-1 to be honest. And we
Especially
felt like we had to just throw ourselves at each other. But you can do that, or you can do the ground support, where you're actually giving a column shift modifier by using one of the tactical air units.
And you can stack a bunch of those and get really good column
and get 2 or 3 column shifts. So that was really cool. That's why I say it's like a buffet. You can really, as an allied player, go, oh, I don't mind losing some replacement points this turn, so I'm not going to worry about those U-boats, or I'm not going to worry about the other elements, or attack the German reinforcements. You can get your reinforcements. They're coming in so far away. Really liked that.
Yeah, that was one of a few really neat aspects to this game, where this is it's a surprisingly accessible game for it being. It's a big 2-mapper. The counters I feel are very clear.
Yeah,
the
there's
map
not a lot
is
of info on
very clear as well.
The player aids are very good.
Usually with kind of hex and kind of games this big, sometimes it's like, oh, this is a lot.
Yeah,
but and it's surprisingly not.
It can be easy to get intimidated just by a thick rule book. The rule book wasn't that bad. What, about 20 pages, give or take?
Is it? I think it's a bit more than that. I suppose it's 30.
Yeah, almost 30. But I felt like we picked it up pretty quickly because we've played a lot of these games. But
and a large portion of that, so 3 of those pages, Compass prints the counter sheets in the back of their rules.
Right.
And then there's a whole bunch of additional rules which we didn't use, which you don't have to.
Yeah, some of the added chrome.
So really, the rules aren't that bad.
About 25 pages.
And they're pretty decently organized.
Yeah.
And there's a really good expanded sequence of play on a play aid card that you'll use.
Yeah.
Some of the like the invasion. There's a special invasion card. I feel like that could have been a little more bit clear. Better. Frankly, I was just reading it from the rulebook because you do the invasions once or twice a game at most, and so I need the refresh. I need the actual rules rather than this little thing that I'm going to do once and then put aside for the rest of the game. But aside from that, this game was fun.
I had a blast with this, even though as the Allies I really could never get going. It was fun. It was really fun trying to stave off the stuff that I knew was going to kill me. Weather I couldn't control. That was a bad roll.
Well, yeah.
But
and that's something to note. So if you're very unlucky with your rolls, through the whole of the summer, which is when this game starts, it goes from kind of June 1st all the way to April 1st, 1945. You can get to those first, I think, 3 or 4 months. The weather's going to be good, unless you roll a 6.
Yeah, which I rolled a 6.
And rolling a 6 can be really, like, it's very, very bad.
Well, and the reason it's bad, particularly for the Allies, is the Allies rely heavily on their naval gunboats, and when the weather's bad, they can't assist.
And it cuts the air power, generally speaking.
Goes. But even worse than that, when you do get a foothold on the mainland, you build a mulberry, and that mulberry determines the number of units you can have at any one time
in
Europe. So you've got to get mulberry. You got to get a mulberry built, and then you've got to capture a couple of ports. But that mulberry can get damaged by storm. I rolled a 6. It cut it in half, so it went from 12 units to 6, and then you can rebuild it by moving an infantry unit there, but it's like 1 step a turn.
Yes, and it's very bad.
I think I got back up to 8 or 9 by the end. So you got to understand that's going to happen from time to time. But I'm going to be honest, even though I lost, I really enjoyed trying to get that pocket to grow and plug in the gaps and trying to figure out how to use my units properly and break out. I really enjoyed that.
Yes.
And it would go well for me for a moment, and then you would bring a couple good units in or use a replacement point here or there and get those SS tank units back up, and it really hard to overcome that. But great. I enjoyed this a lot.
So one of the things about this game, so I played as the Germans. Basically, the map of France, you've got kind of central France, which is this kind of just region, but all of the coast, and this is why it's called Fortress Europa, is divided up into military districts. And to start the game with, there's this initial setup card, and it's got all your units. This is a big sled, and it's like, in the 19th military district, you have these. And so you look at your 19th military district, and you have to set them up
however you feel is appropriate.
And the same thing with all these different districts around the coast. You have to build the fortress before you start playing.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, normally, especially in games I've not played before, I absolutely hate doing that. Because
you just don't know.
So much of the game will kind of stand or fall based on setup.
Yeah.
And if you don't know the game, especially for a big game like this, that can suck.
Mm-hmm.
But it gives you some direction, and there are some things which are very obvious and
some are intuitive, yeah.
Like, there's a whole bunch of these fortress hexes, and here's where the cities are.
Right.
If you defend in the cities, your defense factors are doubled. Like,
Yeah.
definitely
Well,
do that.
And in addition to that, the deep water ports there. You know, for instance, Cherbourg can give me 8 extra. Cherbourg can give you 8 extra units to the Allies. So you definitely want to protect that one.
Yes.
And I thought you did a good job of putting the right units up there. Did you have any hidden units up there?
No, I did not.
Okay. That was another aspect.
Yes.
Those hidden units were really cool.
The Germans, you have to set up all this stuff. So that takes a bit of time. So.
And those are basically your static defensive units.
But also
Some of them are
it's
not.
a lot of your armor and infantry. It's just
True.
It was kind of there. And so there's some initial setup to this. You do have to do that, and it's a little bit more involved than just like some of the games.
Put this here,
1622,
put this,
put it
yeah.
there. All right, you got to think about it. But there's what you're talking about. There's a bunch of hidden units, and you basically get down a piece of paper and you write down, and hex this, there's this, and hex this, there's this. And you have a list. There's like 8 that you'll probably use, and you're saying this guy's here, this guy's here, this guy's here, this guy. So what's going to happen is the very first turn, the Allies are going to say, this is where I'm invading. And they put out a whole bunch of guys. And then they commit all of their air power. And then you're like, oh, by the way,
there's more.
Here's these extra guys I have. And so there's this extra tiny little cat and mouse, which is really funny. Because you can maybe leave something so it looks slightly undefended to bait them to attack there, and you can spring an ambush on them. Or you can just use it to like reinforce everywhere. You know, play it safe, I guess.
Well, and as the Allied player, I was trying to look up and down that coast to decide where I was going to attack. And you're absolutely right. There were a couple spots, and I think what happened, I think I put my guys out and assigned all the everything. And then I think I ran to the bathroom, and I come back, and you had sprung the trap, and I'm like,
it's just a bunch of SS there.
And I'm like, how did this happen? So I thought that was really cool. I thought it was a great hidden unit mechanic that put a lot of intrigue and a lot of, really, to be honest, a lot of the unknown. And I liked that. I thought that was really cool.
And what I wanted to say is, normally, I actually don't like doing that.
Mm-hmm. You did a good job.
Normally, I like a game to just like, here's what it is.
Put it in, and then
like,
let's play.
Now, make it work. But this was...
Yeah.
It's only 8 units you have to hide, and the setting up of your own Fortress Europa, it's not overwhelming.
No.
It takes some time, like, sorting out all the bits and pieces, but it was actually very fun.
Well, and let's talk about the other element that I thought was really cool about the invasion. So the different districts... Depending on which district you end up invading, that's going to determine what your in-game victory conditions are.
Yes,
which I thought was really interesting.
At least for the invasion scenario.
Right, for the scenario that we played. So it basically, I basically attacked to the east of where the Allies actually attacked because it looked better, But then it got worse. Like I attacked around Dieppe. That was where I started.
and we did it twice.
Right, because the first time,
I mean, it was
not really understanding the nuances of that.
No,
it was a total bloodbath.
Yeah, we just lined them up and did it, and was like, oh no, let's
redo that. Yeah, so we did redo that, but it took like 10 minutes and.
But it was interesting because I always like when the results mirror some history. Yeah. You invaded Dieppe with like an armor unit and a couple of big infantry units, entirely wiped immediately. Yeah.
I didn't invade with armor units because you can't use. No, you can use the
79th armor.
Yeah, 79th armor.
But yeah, like it was just like, oh, they were wiped.
They're dead. They got totally killed.
And it was like, oh, that's kind of dumb. And I'm like, oh, no, wait, that's
what happened.
That's what happened when they tried that a few years before this. But having all these different districts, if you invade in the south for trying to do the kind of the Champagne landings, your your victory conditions are different to start with. You know, you have to like hold on to Marseille, but then you have to like shoot north to
You have to
Lyon,
get all the way to Lyon, yeah.
or go over to the west, or you know, if you're invading at La Rochelle on the west coast, it's you have to try and run up to Brest or run up to Cherbourg. Just different things.
Yeah.
If you invade the Netherlands, why on earth you try to do that?
Right. Well, you would try to do it because Amsterdam has a port that has 10. But
Yes.
those victory conditions
good luck
are hard.
landing your
I know.
troops, though.
But
But
so,
this changes. This game has a lot of, to me, replay value.
I agree. Because you could try a different strategy. You could go more towards Cherbourg, or you could go more towards the Netherlands. It's just very interesting, and I really liked that part of that.
And the longer the game goes,
design.
you know, you open up your main front, and then you've got a couple months before you can open up a second front by doing a second invasion as well. You can drop Paris a couple of times.
Well, and that was one thing we talked about. Some of the things we didn't like. I don't know that there was a lot we didn't like. I struggled with the paratroopers. I don't know that they had the ability or the power to do much. We kind of talked about, well, what would we have done with them, and I think I did what I needed to do with them. Tried to hold a city to slow the advance.
Yeah,
But I felt like they could have been a little more.
at this scale.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I'm using them to screen or block more than anything because their attack values aren't
very great. Yeah.
Compared to some of the other bigger units out there.
So that was interesting, and trying to figure out how to use the commandos was another interesting thing. They have an interesting. They're not overpowered, but they
and
have a neat little thing.
They can go along with U.S. Army Rangers.
Right.
That's the only combined arms that you can really do between nationalities, and they can kind of it causes distractions over here,
right?
So some chaos.
You're never really going to blow anything away, but you might get lucky.
But it's tying up German forces whilst you're trying to do
something else.
More.
So I was getting ready to use a couple of those, but the game ended. So yeah, but overall, I had a really good time with this, and we talked about this earlier. It's been about 2 months since we've actually played a really heavy hex encounter.
Yes.
We've been playing a lot of lighter, card-driven games or other types of games. So I felt really good to get back to the roots of a hex encounter game, and I really enjoyed this one. In fact, I really want to play this one again.
Yes. So and that's the other thing. This is a fairly long game.
Yeah, we played a 7-turn scenario, and it took us about, between dinner and really learning the rules, it took us about 7 hours.
Yeah.
Probably about 5.5 of playtime.
Yeah. And
so a little longer than expected.
And it said, I said 2 to 4 hours?
2 to 4,
so,
yeah.
We're just on the long end of that.
And I think we were moving pretty quickly as we now got more into the swing of it.
Right, and as the campaign goes on, there'll be more units, but...
And I think the campaign game was like...
Did they say 12 hours? Was it?
Yeah, it was like 8 to 12 or something. And it's like 24 turns or something like that.
But, it's only 2 maps, so it's not massive.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of charts and sleds and things like that as well. So this does take up my entire table.
Yeah. I like these sleds, though. I think they're really a good way to... One, make sure you got all your counters, and 2, just familiarize yourself with what you've got.
And the other thing with this game is it does include a Battle of the Bulge scenario.
It does.
And it has like a whole other setup stuff, and you just play kind of Bulge at the end. So if you wanted to do that, that's an option for you as well. Would you play this solo?
This actually is one, while there is a lot of hidden information with those hidden units, and I think this would be one that I would...
It's only that one time, though, I think. That where
you do the
setup. So it wouldn't be total killer.
So you got to figure out a way to figure out how to keep that... I don't know. But yeah, I think this is one you could play solo.
Outside of that, you could... This is a very doable...
Absolutely.
Kind of a solitaire game.
Yep, I would agree with that. In fact, I was thinking that when we were playing, I was like, I could set this up at home and really play a couple of the other scenarios, or just start them and see how they go.
Yeah. But what I'll do is I'll show you at least just a kind of a little bit of how it works and some of the different aspects, and we'll wrap up with a few final thoughts. So here's at least somewhat of Normandy. You see the Allies trying to establish a strong beachhead, kind of breaking out, and then you've got Germans trying to swing and screen Paris, but it's not necessarily going well. But the counters here, I enjoy. I like how clean they are. As far as movement and combat goes, each of the counters, we'll take a look at here. 7th Armoured for the US, they just have 2 factors. That first factor, the 7, is an attack factor or a combat factor, and they also have the 6 movement factor. So that 7 is its attack value and its defensive value, and then the 6 is for movement. Most of the time, all these kind of clear hexes, just 1 movement to move through those. Things start to get slow through rough terrain. If you end up in these mountains, you basically just have to stop. You have to stop your movement. Obviously, not a lot of mountains up in the north here. Just a lot of kind of rough terrain. Combat-wise, it's a very traditional. You add up your combat factors. I got a 7 and I got a 9, so I'm at a 16, and I'm going against a 7. We're in open terrain, so there's no modifiers there, and you just go combat odds. So on the back here's the played chart. You look at your CRT. Let's say we're at 2-to-1 odds because the Germans are your attacker. Roll a dice, and you roll a 1. That's not what you want to see. So A1, the attacker takes 1 step loss of his choice and retreats all his surviving units 1 or 2 hexes. So very bad, don't do that. You're going to take an armor step loss, and then we're going to retreat 1 space. Now retreating can be a very hairy situation because of stacking limits and because of other kind of strategic things that might be going on. In this instance, we're just going to hoppity skip over the river and kind of go back this way. This is this is a clear hex, so we can have 3 stacked in it. So where things get interesting is the Allies, what they're trying to do is they have all these air counters, and there's a air mission that they can do where they can bomb all the bridges on this river, which means I would not be able to retreat this way. I can't end my retreat in a zone of control of enemy units, and I can't, I think that's the only way I'd be able to retreat. You can't retreat into enemy zones of control, and if that's the case, you end up just being eliminated. Not good. You want to avoid that at all costs. So, in situations like this, at the beginning of each round, you have this air mission chart, and basically the Allies have 11 air points, and they're trying to put them all in these different kind of spots. So if they're doing a bridge attack, they're trying to put strategic bombers in here, which they can then say, along this section of the river, up to this junction, all of this river, all the bridges are blown. They're just bombing them, attacking them, so there's no safe retreat paths, and you can't use them to move over. So this aspect of it becomes really important. They might commit a couple of bombers here, and the Germans might say, I desperately need to be able to have that freedom of movement, so they're committing some of the precious Luftwaffe over here to counter those, and to nullify that so this effect doesn't go off. At the same time, the Allies might be trying to get a whole bunch of tactical ground support. So when they're doing an attack, if they have any of these ground support air, they can add them to the combat to give themselves column shifts on the CRT. They might also be trying to do some carpet bombing, which, if the odds aren't great, if you're at 2-to-1 or less, the Allies can toss in carpet bombing to give themselves +2 to this die roll. You can destroy German rail movement capacity. They can attack German replacements. They do have to commit resources to anti-submarine warfare and to destroying V1 sites. If you don't do that, your replacements from England and from the US get reduced. You get fewer guys through because you're losing the war in the Atlantic or on the home front, things like that. So there's this extra little chromey bit to pay attention to, which is one of my favorite parts of the game. And what happens is the Americans or the Allies have a whole bunch of these markers, and they first put out all 11 on here. You put like 3 in here, bunch in here, 1 or 2 here or there. And then the Germans, on a very, very tight schedule, they get 6 planes for the whole of June. Bear in mind, June is 4 turns long, and the Allies get 11 every turn. So where they're going to have 44 planes, the Germans are going to have 6. And at most, they're going to be able to do 4 every turn. That's what this part is. You get 6 for the whole month, and you can only ever do a maximum of 4 per turn. So you might do 4 one turn and 2 the next. But this little cat and mouse, you just put it all out, and I put mine out to kind of nullify maybe 1 or 2 things you're doing at most. And then that stuff gets resolved. It's a really clean way of doing air combat without having markers out on the board and moving air bases and doing all this mess. That's an aspect I really enjoyed. Other than that, the combat's really simple. Moving, attacking, taking losses, moving and retreating. They're trying to establish a beachhead, and the important part with the beachhead are these mulberries. So you can see here this mulberry's got a value of 12 on it. If we can get it in focus here. Oh, hello. Good eye. There we go. So that means if this mulberry is parked on the coast, I can have a maximum of 12 Allied units in Europe. Now on top of that, for every port that I take, Dieppes are 1, Le Havre's are 5. Each of these ports increases my supply capacity. So if I have this mulberry, Dieppe, and Le Havre, I've got a supply capacity of 18. I can have 18 Allied units. Then I'm going to go and take Boulogne. I'm going to take Calais. That gives me another 8. So the more of these ports they take, if I rush up to Cherbourg, the more guys I can get on, the more my beachhead gets bigger, so to speak. So it's really, really important not only to establish a beachhead, but to break out from that, charge the coast, and then swing east and go and take out the kind of the German lines over here. And it's a really fun exercise as the Allies in managing what you've got, because you do have a whole bunch of guys in England. There's this whole sled of dudes that we didn't even get to. There's still that many on there. And you can flow them on, but there's only a maximum you can actually have. So you're trying to use guys that they're not quite expendable, but you can be a bit more liberal. The Germans have a very tight replacement schedule and a very tight reinforcement schedule for the first few months. So they're taking heavy losses and can't replace them. But the Allies can't necessarily overwhelm them until they take more ports. So this struggle's really, really cool. And then it's kind of take Paris and then race eastwards. So that's the general gist of the game. What we'll do, we'll wrap up with a few final thoughts. So that's a look at the map and at least somewhat of how it plays. But all in all, I had a fun time with it. I can see why they've chosen to revisit this title and kind of bring it back and bring it out into a modern.
I think it's a well-designed classic hex encounter game, and they've added some chrome and added some cool things, and I think this is a very good, solid game for someone to even get involved into wargaming. I don't know that it's that complex that they wouldn't be able to pick it up, but I can see why they reprinted it.
Absolutely. And it makes, I'm like, I never thought I would ever say this, but so there were parts of the rules where you're like, oh, I can see where this this would be a really good East Front game.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, I want to go play the Russian campaign, which, you know.
And I've wanted to play that one for a long time because we've struggled with some East Front games. We haven't really found ones that we really love. I think the Russian campaign is one that I think I could really get into.
Yeah, it's simple enough, and things like the strategic rail movement and the air combat side of it, I'm like we were playing this, I'm like, oh yeah, I can see how that would be a really fun East Front thing to do. Doing all the train lines, bombing all that strategically, doing all of that stuff without having insanely draconian supply rules and a whole bunch of other stuff. It has supply, you do need to take care of it, but it's manageable. It's not nothing nutso. Yeah. But all in all, I had fun time with this. It was a good time.
Me too. This is a game that I would like to play again.
Yes. It has a lot of stuff, this covers my whole table.
Yeah, we need a bigger table.
And I still had charts that didn't fit on the table. But if you've got the space for it, this is a fun game, and I would recommend it.
I would too, and we've played quite a few Compass games now, and this is probably one of my top 2 or 3 that we've played. So that tells me a lot.
Yes. I know people, one thing I've heard people moan about is they don't like the white core counters.
Well, and we talked about it. A couple of my counters were kind of coming apart. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I just got a bad batch, maybe, but
I really like the white core counters.
I do too.
I actually prefer them.
I do too.
I think the white edges are nice and clean.
They are clean.
And I like that
they
they're
clip
light.
Nice. Yeah, and they clip nicely. I don't mind thinner counters. I
don't feel like they, but I have.
People have to find something to complain about.
I know.
That's just the way it is.
But I just wanted to, for me...
I didn't like this font.
I really like the presentation of this game. There's a couple changes I'd make with some of the play aids and stuff. Yeah. But generally speaking, maybe... Well, I don't know if you can condense any of this stuff, but...
There's just a lot here. There's a lot.
It's just big.
That's a big game.
That's the only thing. You just have a little bit of space for this one. But I had a blast playing it. So... Appreciate you guys tuning in. This has been Fortress Europa from Compass Games, and I've been Alexander.
And I'm Graham.